Hi, welcome to the third video in a series about using the fairy tale form for the creation of healing personal stories. In this video, we're going to talk about the benefits of fairy tales for personal narratives. Most of the fairy tales that we read to our children and grandchildren have been around for hundreds and even thousands of years. Folklorists and anthropologists now think, for instance, that the story of Jack and the Beanstalk traces back some 5,000 years to the Neolithic period, when farming and settlements were just becoming widespread. There must be a reason why such stories have persisted for so long, beyond just their entertainment value. Like the Greek myths and Shakespearean plays, there must be deeper truths within these stories that continue to make them feel relevant to us, even today. They do indeed contain deep psychological truths and symbolic language that resonates with us at a fundamental level. Let's look at some of these elements, the vehicles that carry this truth to us. First, at the heart of all fairy tales is a journey in which the hero or heroine is thrust out of their previous reality into a realm of challenge and mystery, in which they must face hardship and obstacles. This mirrors the trajectory of a human life. It is the periods of loss, trauma, and upheaval that are the catalysts of change in our lives. In fairy tales, being cast into the dark forest is not the end, but rather the beginning of change. Similarly, in personal healing, acknowledging the pain and confusion of one's circumstances can be the first step towards growth. Second, the symbolic elements of fairy tales can be used to reimagine and contextualize difficult real-life events, offering a more gentle approach to trauma. One advantage of this can be that memories that feel overwhelming, so overwhelming that we have kept them buried or emotionally unavailable, are held as if it were at arm's length, or we can consider them with a little objectivity without being swallowed back into them. 3. With that little bit of objectivity, we may gain more insight into the memory. For example, children who don't understand much of what is happening among the adults caring for them often assume that bad things that happen, their parents' divorce, or the unreasonably harsh punishment meted out to them, is their own fault. But when, as an adult, they are able to look back on those events through the distancing lens of a fairy tale, like looking through a telescope from the wrong end, they may suddenly understand that all that had little to do with them, but rather everything to do with what their parents were going through. Number 4, crucially, fairy tales always involve transformation. Whether it's Cinderella going from ashes to royalty or the Beast regaining his humanity, change is inevitable and redemptive. This narrative structure affirms that hardship is not the final chapter. Crafting one's story as a fairy tale can help a person reframe themselves not as the victim, but as a survivor and hero. It invites them to ask, what powers do I have? What allies have helped me? What monsters have I faced and overcome? Number 5, fairy tales conclude with resolution and often justice. Though real life is rarely as tidy, envisioning a satisfying ending allows people to imagine what healing could look like. It plants seeds of hope. Writing or telling one's life as a fairy tale encourages the creation of a future that, while not perfect, is meaningful and fulfilling. Number 6, in essence, fairy tales offer a narrative map, a beginning of innocence or struggle, a middle of conflict and growth, and an ending of renewal. When individuals see their own lives through this lens, they access a deeper layer of meaning. They become the author of their own myth, reclaiming agency and voice. They see that life is not just a series of things that happen to us. Once we grow up in a free society, our life is largely a result of choices that we have made. And no matter where we find ourselves as a result of those choices, we can consider what choices are within our power to make now to improve our lives. In this way, the fairy tale becomes not just a story told, but a story lived and healed. Finally, there's an added benefit when we create our own stories and share them in community, even if it's only with one or two other people. In ancient times, fairy tales told in groups around a fire after the day's work was done served to weave a shared web of communal understanding, compassion, and authentic human connection. In today's world, we have lost much of that deeper kind of community. But group workshops for writing and sharing our own stories in fairy tale form can be a palpably satisfying step back in the right direction. That's it for today's short video. Join us again soon for our next video, which will be ways to play with symbolism in fairy tales. See you soon.